Welcome to episode 68 of the Business Development Podcast. And on today's episode, we have Don Murray, Director of Imprint Sign and Print Solutions. And with over 30 years of design and print experience, we're going to learn a few things. Stay tuned.
The great Mark Cuban once said, "Business happens over years and years. Value is measured in the total upside of a business relationship, not by how much you squeezed out in any one deal." And we couldn't agree more. This is the Business Development Podcast, based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and broadcasting to the world. You'll get expert business development advice, tips and experiences, and you'll hear interviews with business owners, CEOs, and business development reps. You'll get actionable advice on how to grow business. Brought to you by Capital Business Development, capitalbd.ca. Let's do it. Welcome to the Business Development Podcast. And now your expert host, Kelly Kennedy.
Hello, welcome to episode 68 of the Business Development Podcast. Wow, it still blows my mind that we're approaching episode 70 rather quickly. It won't be long till we're up over 100, but I never saw that coming. You know, sometimes I look back and I think about episode 1 through 10, and at that time, we could have never pictured the growth that this show has had. So if you are a consistent listener of the Business Development Podcast, we appreciate you greatly. Thank you so much for contributing to the success of our show. And we hope you stick with us for a very, very long time. On today's show, we are chatting about graphic design and marketing materials. I am graced today with Don Murray, the Director of Imprint Sign and Print Solutions. Don boasts a remarkable 30-year career in the dynamic realms of graphic design and printing. As a co-leader alongside Jan Syke, he has been instrumental in steering Imprint towards its position as a thriving enterprise, even amid the challenges presented by the pandemic. Don's extensive expertise spans both sheet-fed, offset, and wide-format signage, making him a true luminary in the industry. This diverse background equips him with the capability to provide a wide spectrum of print solutions, blending the best of both worlds to craft, bespoke, and innovate approaches for every project. Under Don's leadership, Imprint has earned accolades, including a prestigious nomination for the Atchison Community Award. His passion for the craft, unwavering commitment to quality, and creative problem-solving abilities continue to drive Imprint's success, making it a trusted destination for a wide array of printing needs in Atchison, Alberta, and beyond. Don, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Kelly. Thanks for having me on.
It is an absolute pleasure. 30 years in the industry. That's wild.
Yeah, I like to tell people 20 plus years because 30 sounds like just a little bit archaic, but we move and grow with the times, right?
Oh, goodness. I hate to break it to you, but the 90s was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Is that all you've been doing since you were very young?
You know what? Right at the end of high school, I wanted to go to university. I didn't know what direction to head to in university, and an opportunity came up to apprentice in a print shop.
Yeah.
And, back then, of course, everything was very analog, very, very craft, hand skilled, type of, and so I really fell into it. And at the same time, really, learned to enjoy it. And it was a very gratifying a job for me. So I stuck with it and kind of rolled with the changes, and here we are.
That's wild. Yeah. So, in the beginning, is it one of those industries that has stayed very much the same, or what kind of change have you experienced in that time? Obviously the machinery has changed, the technology to get graphic design has changed, but is a lot of printing still printing? Is printing?
Not even close. It has changed so dramatically and so rapidly that really the apprenticeship that I had, my journeyman certificate, wasn't valid the year after I received it. And so when I got into the industry, we were producing everything with film and a lot of hand cutting for color separations, and everything was running on offset presses in the sheet fed industry at that time. And certain limitations to that. I mean, there's lots of things those presses do well and still do very well. But yeah, I mean, there was no digital side of things, right? And so, fast forward just a couple of years and digital scanning, started to enter the industry
Yeah.
along with digital cameras. And, so we saw this real change from great photography that was film based to horrible low resolution digital camera image capture.
Yes.
And so the industry almost took a bit of a hit there, right? Where our print quality actually went down for a number of years just in those images that were being produced. And, along with that, Photoshop that everybody knows and loves as a software kind of came in year 3 in its infancy. And of course, now that is the de facto industry standard for dealing with images. Yeah. So as that sort of that digital footprint started to change, and, it changed our industry, and what really happened over the course of a number of years is we saw digital press technology, move into the industry, and it always competed against the offset world. The offset world, we could always achieve very high quality print products.
Yeah.
And the digital side, again, started very, it was convenient and it was less expensive to kind of get into it, but the print quality just didn't compare. It wasn't even close. And so as that, that model changed, there's really a lot of that R&D kind of went into the digital side. And, of course, we saw that at home with our home printers and photocopiers, and then digital presses. And really, the digital presses are sort of that technology on steroids, right? And with a lot more software support. So, yeah, so with that, I mean, again, challenges, peaks and valleys, but, color management, color science really changed with how we were putting ink on paper. And at the same time, in the wide format signage industry, it was moving in the same direction from historically like silkscreen presses to wide format inkjet printers.
Yeah.
And, so that technology changed right alongside. And so, with us, so as a person in the industry, we had to change and adapt as well. And, what are the advantages of this new equipment? What are the disadvantages? Can we bring in a piece of equipment and the software and have somebody who was doing everything by hand or in an analog environment operate this equipment and successfully transition to the software, right? So the whole industry, even from a labor perspective, started to adapt and change. And some people did that very well, and some people struggled with it. And so that was one of the challenges that we faced. Moving forward, as as that industry changed, people's needs and requirements for print changed. Obviously, during this period, again, dating myself, the internet
Yeah.
sort of came into fruition, and email and digital technologies changed how print media, was sort of handled in the business world, in the retail world. How are people, digesting that information? And so again, the industry took a really big hit. I mean, we all know the first Kindle came out and took a bite out of the novel market, right? There were e-magazines, and that took a bite out of that industry. The forums industry really changed quite significantly. And so a lot of printers who were sort of focused in certain areas really struggled, and some of them didn't make it. And so the industry had declined for a number of years. And I would say probably 2010, 2011 was sort of the tapering off of that decline.
Yeah.
Where you had a number of people who, in North America specifically, preferred reading books with paper, right? They liked the tangible feel of it. It was more comfortable. They had tried the Kindle, they'd come back, and so we saw a little bit of a rebound. The magazine market actually really dramatically rebounded. And I think, people like, some of the things they like about books and paper is that you can control the pace and the content, right? And even as a producer of that type of content, from a design perspective, we can control what people are seeing on the page without it being in their face, right? And we can give it to them rather than having to go to a link or an action on their part to see that offering.
Yeah,
So, you know, if you had an ad in a magazine, you could control what you put next to that ad or on the opposing page,
sure.
and people are going to flip, right? So a number of these markets did rebound, but what did change was the quantities of content that people needed. And so because of the internet and the ability to rapidly change the amount of information we're delivering to people, print always lagged that way because there's a production cycle to it. You know, if we put something up on the internet, we can put it up very quickly. We can look at it, we can gauge response, and then we can change accordingly.
Yeah,
And if something is in print, it's in print and it's there. It's timeless unless somebody recycles it, right?
yeah.
So there's a bit of a lag there. So that desire to change information rapidly, or at least anticipate information change, also changed the print requirements for people. So, you know, instead of people printing 10,000 brochures for all of their trade shows in a year, knowing
Yeah,
that they would get a good volume pricing on that, they might
sure.
want to print 1,000 for this, you know, this brochure. So costs go up when it comes to offset printing that regard. But this is where digital printing really, you know, really got a good foothold in the industry. Um, so yeah, so again, embracing those technologies, you know, it was more about the right fit for the right product.
Yeah, no, and like as a gigantic advocate for physical brochures, I, you know what, I see the benefit of both, and I, you know, with all my clients, I say, look, we need both because if you are meeting people in person, which is what we always advocate for on the business development side of things,
Yeah.
I like to give something to get something. If I'm going to ask somebody for business, or if I'm going to ask somebody to give me a business card or something, I think that an exchange should happen. So in my mind, whenever I ask for a business card, I give a business card. And whenever I'm at a meeting and we're having a discussion, I love to pull out a physical brochure. And for a few reasons, what I've found in my time in business development is people don't, especially if it's a beautiful, well-designed brochure, people don't throw them out. They sit on people's desks for a decade sometimes. Like there's something about having that physical print product that can physically be on somebody's desk or in their pile or in their mail bin versus a digital product. I think you should ultimately send both. But if companies have gone to a completely digital strategy, my word of advice would be to go back and at least go back and create a physical brochure to move forward with.
Yeah, and I would, you know, agree with you. And you know, so that's one of our recommendations as well, is to say, yeah, you know what, everybody needs a great website, right? You have to have online content,
Absolutely.
absolutely. But you know, we want people to be able to get there, right? And so if you use a brochure, you know, with your QR code, website, all your contact information, your list of products, it's really easy to use for them. And we want to drive people to your, you know, to your website if they need more, yeah, information or more interactions, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to go back to you spent some time at a company called Priority Printing, quite a bit of time, 20 years. What are some of the tasks that you learned while you were there?
Yeah, well, we were, you know, one of the my role there was managing the pre-press graphic design area. So with that was, you know, we had 6 staff members, and during that time we did transition from, you know, a lot of the analog side into digital side, just from a production standpoint, how we handled, you know, people supplying files versus hard copies, and you know, how to transition with that. And so lots of new equipment, you know, changes in people's roles, and a really mixed environment. I mean, we had graphic designers with university degrees or college, you know, program degrees, interacting daily and working with tradespeople to produce. And of course, very tight deadline industry, right? Lots of demands. And one of the unique demands that or challenges that we face in the pre-press world is that it's one of those few industries where we're creating a custom manufactured product that a lot of times starts out on somebody's home computer. They have a very real hand in producing the artwork, right? So
Yeah.
it would be like building your own cupboard and then taking it to, you know, a cupboard manufacturer to refine and finish and make a few more of, type of thing. So there are some unique things about the industry that way. And so really a lot of my time there was spent in process, control, and how do we change this process? How do we make things more efficient? And how do we drive, our business forward that way? The other thing I was tasked with at Priority was, alternative revenue streams. And that's when I implemented their wide format signage area that they had at the time there. So, and those really are two different industries. And yeah, so different unique challenges between integrating the two.
Yeah, no, totally. One of the questions that I have is kind of like you said, that integration of the customer and the print shop. I think that, as a business, sometimes it's really challenging to know, like you have an idea, you need a new brochure, you need a magazine created, or you want to get some promo materials done, or you need to get a sign printed. But like you said, you might have like an idea of what you want, or given the modern day, a lot of people know how to use Canva and a lot of other different design situations, Photoshop and whatever else. How I'm sure that there's like the common issues that you run into all the time with regards to a customer coming to your shop and saying, "Hey, I just need this done. You should be able to just do it." And then the realization that no, there's definitely more that needs to be done, or a lot more that needs to be done on the print shop side and design side to make sure that they can get it to a point that would be acceptable for the customer. Can you explain that interaction a little bit better and maybe mitigate some expectations, or maybe help a business owner with what they should consider before they approach the print shop?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'll address are timelines. And, we do require a certain amount of time, obviously any industry does, to manufacture the piece. And depending what it is and the quantity, that can change. But what I found over the years is that quite often the longest process in the print production side of things is actually developing the artwork. Does the customer have the content, right? We have design people on staff, but and we have copywriting if they require that, but we don't know your business as well as you know your business. Mm-hmm. So for us to copyright, we need direction. So and we have customers who come in and they say, "Okay, I don't know where to start," and that's okay. Then come on in, we sit down, we have a conversation. I'll ask some questions. We'll start to see, okay, what's important to your business? Who are you trying to reach? What are your products? What do you want to highlight? And so we start there, and then we start filling in the blanks. And, the actual design of the piece, once we have that content, now we can hand that off to our designer and let them know, okay, these are areas that need to be highlighted. Do we want supporting images? What kind of graphic elements do we want to dress this up? And then we turn it over to them. And I have a great appreciation for creatives and people who can conceptualize. And, so that's kind of right from that. I don't have anything, but here's what I want.
Yeah.
To people who say, okay, you know what, you mentioned Canva. I've built this in Canva. Can you just print it? And a lot of times we can, and then sometimes we just can't because it's not built to the size and shape that they want. And so then we work with them to either, adjust those files ourselves, or, or back to them, say, hey, try this. What about this? Can you make it this size? Add this and this type of thing. So yeah, so we don't just leave people when they sign up with us.
Yeah.
Once they commit to an order or drop off a file, sometimes it's a bit of a back and forth process. We want to make sure at the end of the day, our goal is to deliver a product that they are, happy with, that they were expecting. There's no surprises. It's something they're proud to give out that's going to represent their business well.
Yes. And in my experience in business development, a good design and print studio becomes an incredibly valuable partner to any organization. And I know that it can just seem like a service, but trust me, from the business development standpoint, you need a company that you can work with, that you can spitball back and forth with, because unfortunately or fortunately, in my experience in working with print shops, there's so much to it, and there is a process. And that process has to be followed to get you the quality of material that you need for your business. And ultimately, what you need is a good print shop who will go back and forth with you and say, hey, have you thought about this? Or this is something that we need to take a look at. Or if we move this here, this might work better for you. Or how do you feel about this font? Maybe we can improve this. And one of the cool things, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Don, but you guys have seen so much. Like in my experience, who better to create your brochure material than companies that have built thousands of different brochures for other companies, who have seen the full gambit, who knows what is receptive or what's hot in the moment. These are all things that your print studio can do for you.
Yeah, and when it comes to the design side of things, we're happy to work with you to develop a piece. If you've already worked with a marketing company that's developed that creative, and you've got a brand in motion, then we're going to stick to your brand guidelines and your colors and fonts, and make sure that if we design anything around that brand, we're going to be within the spec of what that brand guideline is telling us are the rules of that branding. So we're very cognizant of the fact of those independent brands have to be adhered to, right? That's your identity as a company. And, those pieces that we produce for you, they're like the curb appeal of your house, right? A lot of times that's your first point of contact. And you know what it's like when you drive up to somebody's house and the first thing you see is, maybe a cracked sidewalk, or maybe you love the rock on the wall, or whatever the case may be, right? We tend to really focus on little things, and they can be either negative or positive. So we want to make sure that those things are positive. So you leave that impression.
Yes. On my show, I talk about web design and brochure design quite a bit. And one of the things that I like to talk about is how in 2023, your website, your marketing material, they become your 20-story skyscraper. Like, we literally live in a time where the image of your business, no matter whether you're small or gigantic, you can portray yourself as a very big business. Like, the ability to do that by having a well-designed website, by having well-designed and well laid out marketing material that have great visual appeal, are absolutely critical to the success of your organization and the success of your marketing teams. In your time, you've seen a lot, right? You've seen the
Sorry,
evolution
Kelly,
you've seen the evolution of brochures over 30 years. What would you say is the trend, now? What if people are designing a brochure for the first time, what should they consider?
Yeah, if people are designing a brochure for the first time, I mean, content, what text do you want? What information do you need to get out there? And that is really the first step, because we want to design a piece that's going to physically fit that content, right? And we have lots of sizes. A lot of people come to us and say, well, it won't fit on half letter, it won't fit on letter size, and we're not tied to those home printer settings. If you want a 6-inch by 6-inch book, great, let's do it. Or if you want a 12-inch by 9-inch page, or whatever the case may be. So the first thing is to look at the content, right? How much content is there? And then we can start to gauge the size and shape of the book. If it's something that's being handed out, do you want it to fit in a pocket? Is it going in a brochure stand? Then we look at the physical shape and size of that piece. How many pages or fold out panels do we want? Are there any other pieces that are going to be interacting with it, like a presentation folder with business card slits, and those pieces that might be working together? Yeah, and then really we start working on the design. Once we know how much content we have and the actual physical sort of constraints or creative of that piece, how do we make that all fit? What fonts are we going to use to make it current, right? One of the most dated things we see are around fonts, right? If somebody brings us a piece that's using Times New Roman, not that it doesn't look great, not that it's not highly readable, but it doesn't look like it came from our decade. So so we have a lot of those tools at our disposal. We have thousands of fonts to work with, and so we're going to start using different fonts in conjunction with each other to support headers and body content and that sort of thing. And then colors and supporting graphics, right? So, do we want images of your product? Do we want images of your business front? What's going to support that content and ultimately get people to read it, right? And then
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we want them to contact you. So how do we, what part of that brochure or that piece is going to say, here's where I am, call, email, website, how do they contact us?
Yeah. I hope that one of the takeaways, Don, that our listeners are getting from this is how critical and how similar the design of good marketing material is to the business development process. It's really one and the same. I hope that they're really starting to make that connection in the way that you're discussing it.
Yeah, and I think the printed piece, I mean, a little biased, of course, but is critical
Yeah.
to business development. I mean, obviously, everybody recognizes the need for an email address and a website.
Yeah.
But the printed material is so good at driving people to those forms of contact. And it is something that can sit on a desk. It's a physical handover. And as soon as you give somebody a business card or a brochure, they have to do something with it. There is a touch point there.
Yeah.
Even if they decide it's not for them and they recycle it, they have to physically do something with it. And they're seeing your branding whether they want to or not. So that
Yeah.
is an advantage that print has. And what I would say makes it critical to every business.
Yes. Well, and just to like reiterate Don's point, I was literally out yesterday doing physical brochure drops. We split them up. We don't do as many as we used to, but I still think that there's a time and a place for it, and especially locally, like especially if it's your city where you're marketing your business to, and really it's a hop, skip, and a jump to downtown, or it's a hop, skip, and a jump to the next prospect's office. 100%. There's nothing wrong with showing up with a well-made brochure, introducing yourself, handing it over, grabbing a card, and following up with them. Because mark my words, these brochures, if they're well done, and this is the caveat, okay, they need to be well designed. They need to be visually appealing. It's 2023. We have short attention spans, right? And you're marketing to millennials. Visual appeal is absolutely critical. But if you're doing these things right, there's nothing wrong with going around and handing your brochure out. Because guess what? If they're done right and they have visual appeal, they're going to sit on the desks of these people and they're going to be seen by a multitude of people. People can sit in a boardroom and pass a brochure around, and this still happens. And I'll tell you what, it's not the same. It's not the same as hopping on your computer and looking at it digitally. There's something that's just more tangible about having something physically in your hands.
Yeah, and I haven't ever had anybody refuse to take at a trade show or a business opportunity, a business card or a brochure. And that, if it's got the right content and it's you've got a service that they may use down the road, it probably is going to go into a folder or sit on a desk. And even if it gets buried, there's something sort of intrinsic about our memory that says, oh, you know what? I read that somewhere. Let me
Yep.
just go take a look. Here's that brochure.
Yes.
Here's that contact, that business card. Now I'm going to go check this website.
Multiple times, Don, in my business development career, I've had companies call me and say, Kelly, I've had your brochure on my desk for 2 years, 3 years. We didn't need you. Now we need you. And I kid you not, I know that sounds absolutely absurd, but it has happened to me multiple times in my career in business development. And so in my mind now, like, just having that burden of proof has been shown that it works. In my mind, this is happening all over. People are keeping well-made brochures. They're sitting on people's desks until they're ready, and that call may come. And I don't think the same can be said about a digital brochure.
Well, I definitely have a few brochures sitting on my desk, and I do refer to them, as well. And we do have a lot of digital noise in our business environment now. I mean, most solicitations come via telephone or via online forms or, through the email. So, the fact that somebody paid for that brochure and they spent the time to give it to you, or that business card, it adds a little bit of validity and some weight and some longevity to it. So
Yeah.
there is some real value in those products.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What have you noticed? What is the industry doing? Like, how are things changing? Are you seeing an evolution right now, Don, as AI is being implemented or all these things? What are you seeing changing in the industry, over the next year or two?
Our software is changing rapidly, which does it does. I don't know if I would challenges the designers for sure. Those content creators, they have to keep up with those changes, and certainly AI is really being built into now. Photoshop specifically. There's things that can be done with the software now that you just couldn't do before, or it would take hours and hours and hours and hours. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted me to take a picture of you sitting in your studio and put you on a beach in Hawaii, I can almost do that at the click of a button now, right? So
Wow.
there's that AI side of things is really changing the content in that way, and so for us, I mean, we have to keep up with that, um, more on the front end versus the back end. I mean, our digital equipment is constantly being improved and refined as well. The quality is still continuing to improve. It's a little bit faster, a little bit easier to run, more user friendly. So the skill of our operators, they can get a great piece, you know, day 3 as opposed to year 2.
Mm.
So that's been good. But yeah, software, especially with the software as a subscription model, uh, now it allows those companies that develop that software, and not just the Adobe Creative Cloud that a lot of people are familiar with, but some of our industry sort of proprietary software as well. It just changes a lot more rapidly because they can change it and roll it out, and we've already purchased those updates, right? So it's not like previously where, okay, version 3 typically comes out 16 to 18 months after version 2, so now we're going
Yeah.
to have to purchase that. So so from a content creation standpoint, I would almost say that it's changing so rapidly that it is a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always know what those changes to the software are until you get into them. And I mean, Canva would be the same way. Microsoft Office, suite is the same way. And so it's not specific to the print industry, but we really use it day in and day out. And so yeah, there can be some interesting challenges that way.
Yes, yes. I know. I I feel the same challenge in business development because CRMs are always updating so quickly, or
Yeah.
like all the social platforms we use, or heck, even AI platforms that we're utilizing for various needs in our business. I had a conversation not that long ago where the discussion kind of went to like, how do you keep up? And the answer was, you really can't. Like, just do the best you can. And it's hard to say with all the AI what's going to become king. It's like ChatGPT is pretty amazing and probably will continue to be the leader in this space, especially for the chatbot side. But with all the other different things, like for the podcast, for instance, I use a program called Any Summary, and it's awesome. It does a lot of great summaries for the shows. I can basically upload my whole text document for my transcript and have it help me to create an episode page, to help create posts for the show, things like that. But they're changing so quickly, and they're being integrated into a lot of these podcasting platforms now as well, that trying to keep up with what is the best route forward as just a simple human is it's a pretty tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see over the next, bit of time to see how many people are, instead of writing that content or really looking at their own business to say, here's what's important to me, but to go to a tool like ChatGPT and say, here's my business, put together a brochure for me, and here it is. So, we'll see if we do get a bit of a watering down of content, or if it will be just as dynamic as, as we people are able to create. So
Yes, I'm a proponent for AI based writing, although I still think that if you just go off of the AI based writing, you still sound like a robot. So don't just go off AI based writing. If you want to run it, type something up and run it through, and then go back and even make edits again to make it more sound like you, that's the way to go about doing it if you're going to use it. Because in my experience, it writes almost too good. It writes better than most people, but it also speaks in a way that probably doesn't represent the way that you speak.
right, we'd all sound highly academic.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What I like to do is, especially if I'm typing something up that's really critical, I like to just run it through and just say, hey, if you were to make improvements to this, what might they be? And what I'll do is I'll read through it again and say, oh, that section sounds good. I think I'll add that in, but this sounds like a robot. I'm not going to put that in. And I know that it's more work, but it's good for like proof checking your writing to make sure that you are laying things out in an organized way and you're taking people through the step process. But it definitely still needs to have that human element. And I think that we're never going to get away from that. I think the human element, or the element that is you as an individual, you have to find ways to integrate that, even if you are going to use AI.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great, a great tool for somebody who is trying to write content. Maybe it doesn't come naturally to them. They can just start, jotting down information and then throwing it in, and let AI put it together for you.
Yeah.
And then, go over it and make sure that it makes sense and it's the right, the right terminology and vibe for your business.
Yes. And that's the other thing you totally hit on. It was like terminology. Like, you need to make sure that it's writing it in the way that you are trying to express that idea instead of the literal meaning in some cases, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times that content drives the design, right? So if
Yeah.
the verbs and the terminology doesn't quite fit with your business, then the design stemming from that might not as well, right? So
Totally. I recently interviewed an author for an upcoming show, and we were talking about how people are just writing entire books now in like Chat GPT or like other different formats. And it's really, really disappointing on that level, because it's like these people, especially these original authors, have worked so hard to create a real piece of art. And then you take that and you say, like, all these people dumping books onto Amazon that are written in a day with a Chat GPT. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of felt bad after that discussion, because, the reality is that these authors are barely making any money as it is, for the most part, off of their independently published books. And then to throw in that you just got a bunch of people trying to make money using Chat GPT to write, books on certain subjects. I don't know. That was a bit of a tough pill to swallow.
well, it'd be interesting to see where it goes, because, just like our print industry, when ebooks sort of came onto the scene, there was a lot of early adopters and then a lot of mass adoption. And then, you know what, it settled out to find its place and become the right tool for the people that wanted it. And I think we're probably going to end up there as well.
Yeah.
We as people are very adaptable. And so, I think it's going to settle in, and I think it's just going to be a good tool for, the right circumstances.
Yeah, no, for sure. Don, I want you to take us into, the modern day. Take us to February of 2021, the launch of Imprint. What was that like? Why? Why did you start Imprint? And why did you do it right in the middle of a pandemic?
Right? Why not? How about naivete? Would that be the right answer?
I'm right there with you.
You know what? So I was working for the university, and, when the pandemic hit, the universities, that scene really changed very rapidly. And for a while, it looked like it was going to be able to we were kind of going to get back to where we were at. But the reality was, between, budget cuts and the pandemic, the role that I was in with the university was not sustainable. And we saw that coming for a while once, So then Jan and I got together. She was sort of between things, and, she's a businesswoman and has had, multiple businesses over the years. And I know the print industry. So we said, really, it was kind of a why wouldn't we scenario. Yeah. And, things started to kind of come together very rapidly. And so, we decided to invest in the right equipment to support both industries. I didn't feel that I could produce one without the other. Over the years, and I really found a number of synergies between the two. And, when you handle unique projects, there are just certain things that are done more efficiently or better results in one industry than the other. And even though there may be a gray area where they can be produced in both. So, for us, I really felt that was the best model for Imprint. And, there are print shops that have some wide format that augments their sheet fed side, and maybe even a few sign shops, although less, that have some sheet fed, or paper products to kind of augment that. We're split right down the middle. We do both day in and day out, and both areas are just as busy. And so it's kind of allowed us to, I hate to use the word sort of niche market, but, we have our customers come to us for either wide format products or offset or sheet fed products. And when they realize we can do the other side of things, typically the response has been, that's fantastic, right? Yeah. We're coming back. And, so all of our businesses so far has typically been referral, which has been fantastic. And so really Imprint, we got going and we're kind of busy out of the gate. And I had some contacts previously who, because I do enjoy those sort of custom, maybe not quite so clear projects. And so those customers were contacting me saying, hey, I have this, what about this? And then, okay, well,
Yeah.
I can probably help you with that. And so those customers really stayed with me right from, into the beginning of Mprint, before Mprint was even an entity. And then it just kind of grew from there. So, we obviously some challenges in the pandemic. I mean, supply lines were just as challenging for us as everybody else.
Yeah.
And paper we couldn't get, envelopes we couldn't get, or if we could get a handful of them. On the manufacturing side of things, it's always great if you find a product that fits well, you want to stick with it, right?
Yes.
And we found that, okay, this month we're producing on this product. Now we can't get that product anymore. So now we've got to change and adapt and color manage, a new material type of thing. So, estimating, you'd price out a product, and then the customer would get back to you in a week and say, yeah, I'm ready to go. You'd order it, and they'd say, we don't have it anymore.
Oh no.
We're out. Okay, so now I have to find something that's similar,
Yeah.
if it's even available. And if it's not similar, now I have to go back to that customer and say, hey, what's your timeline, right? Can we wait
Yeah.
for this, or do we need to do this? So hands-on, really everything needed to be, instead of, okay, I've got this, here's the pricing, we're ready to go, to, okay, here's the pricing, okay, now wait. Now we have to shift and find something suitable and work within your timelines. And so, a lot of challenges in that regard. But what we found is that, our local business community was very welcoming, very supportive, and they really made that, those initial months worthwhile. They
Yeah.
made us feel like we belong here and we're doing the right thing, we're headed in the right direction. So let's persevere and get through some of these issues. And everybody was facing these issues. It wasn't, just us. There were some advantages as well, though. Advantages for us starting up in the pandemic is that we were able to create our business model based on that type of business environment.
Yeah.
So, we don't have old equipment that is no longer viable or useful. We don't have that overhead to support a pre-pandemic environment. And, so that's something that is advantageous now.
Yes, yes. I think of all the same things too. Like we launched Capital in December of 2020, took on our first clients. I think it was March of 2021. And same thing, right? It was word of mouth that kind of got us going in the beginning. And thank goodness it kept us
Yeah.
rolling. But yeah, it was a different environment too. And same thing. One of the challenges that we obviously faced in the beginning of the pandemic was just business development is best done in person. And it was very much that's not going to happen.
Fair enough. Challenge
And
number one.
yes. And so, being a gigantic advocate for active marketing, which is, my bread and butter, it's what I believe in. Yeah, it was very tough adjusting to a team's world to try to get people to come out. And I know especially when the restaurants kind of first started opening up and allowing masking and trying to say, hey, like this is still the best way to do that. So we had to kind of cut our teeth in the hardest time of doing business development as well, which I think in the long run has made us better at what we do too.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree.
Yeah. So one of the things I have had the pleasure of touring your shop. You gave me an amazing tour, you and Jan, and I appreciate that immensely. And your operation is impressive. You have a lot going on, and not only is it impressive, the scope of services you guys offer is even more impressive than the facility. um, the range of stuff that you do, and I don't know. You can let me know if I need to take this out or not, but like you guys have done a wrapped caskets at one point in time through a product line you guys have called Essence. You guys have wrapped an airplane. I thought that was so cool. There's other things going on too. And, just tell me a little bit about what it's like to have such a broad product line.
There are challenges. The experience really dictates that, that it's the time in and the ability to say, hey, you know what? I understand. I hear you as a customer. You're looking for this product. The answer is not, no, we can't do that. The answer is, we can probably do that.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see how we can do that for you.
Yeah.
Right. And then finding those, making that fit or that mesh connection. And what we found is that for some of those unique projects, it takes a little more time and a little more investment for sure, and a little more contact, right?
Yes.
But they're very gratifying, and we love the brag tag at the end of the day as well. We
Totally.
like to say, yeah, we did wrap that airplane, and here's a picture of it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it looks awesome. I mean, we just sent a boat out the door yesterday,
That's
and
awesome.
you know what? It looked awesome.
Yeah.
And so for us, it is a very broad range, and again with the challenges, but you know what, the more products that we produce and the more products that we put together, the more products we're able to produce, right?
Yes.
Because we're able to now combine things that maybe we couldn't do a year ago, but we've taken this on, and we've for us, that's not always the profitable work, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it refines our craft, and it does help to advance our portfolio. It does make us better at what we do. Challenges, yes. But for me, I've been in the industry long enough that I like the challenges.
Sure. Sure. I was
Yeah.
going to say probably stuff like that is what you look forward to the most, even.
Yep. Yep. I mean, don't get me wrong. We love printing your brochures and books and, foam core board signs and for events, all of those things too. Love them. Yeah.
You guys have the ability to print white. I didn't even know that this was a challenge. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, when we brought in our wide format or looked at the equipment, we decided to go with a latex solution. And there's some advantages to latex, some disadvantages too, but we like to push the advantages for sure. And one is it is a more environmentally friendly print technology. It's a water-based ink that's cured with heat, and so the new technology at the time was, HP had this laser printer with, and I've used latex print technology for quite a long time, but they had a white ink, and white ink historically is very, very challenging to use in that it's got a large pigment to it. It requires constant maintenance, and HP sort of developed a product and an ink and a machine that dealt with a lot of those challenges. And for us, we really saw it as an opportunity to print, window graphics and clear graphics where, if you want something to be translucent, we can do that. If you want it to have a blockout look, we can put white behind it. Historically, you had to print a clear vinyl and then put a whole nother vinyl over top just to block out the background.
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was ways around it, but now we can do that. If you want your logo in white in a certain area, or parts of your logo in white and the rest in color, we have a ton of control. We can treat it as its own ink. Well, it is its own ink.
Yeah.
And so, control the opacity of it, a little bit here, or is it almost see-throughable, gradients. So yeah, so it's really been good to open up those avenues.
Yeah. And so I was just completely unaware that was even a challenge. But from what I understand, there's not a lot of places that can even do that.
The white ink allows us, again, it expands that portfolio and helps us to, produce the right product for the right project, right? It helps with that fit. So it's just another tool in the toolbox to create that right look.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Don. Well, this is coming to our end today. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. If you could give one piece of advice to some entrepreneurs to inspire them to take that next jump, what might that be?
Yeah, partner with the right printer.
Partner with
And
the right printer.
if you're developing your business, we really find that we're a very relational business. We want to support you in your business, and we want to keep your look and the projects that you're doing consistent. And it's much easier to do that if the content is all coming to one producer. So so I mean, there's some real advantages in that.
Perfect. This has been episode 68 of the Business Development Podcast. We have been graced with the director of Imprint Sign and Print Solutions in Atchison, Alberta, Don Murray. If you guys have any print needs within Alberta, the whole Alberta area, I think, or Canada as a whole, I don't think Don has much of a limit, but definitely services the Edmonton, Alberta area. give him a try. Him and Jen are awesome. They're great to work with, and I look forward to our next conversation, Don.
All right. Thanks for having me, Kelly. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Until next time, you've been listening to the Business Development Podcast, and we will catch you on the flip side.
This has been the Business Development Podcast with Kelly Kennedy. Kelly has 15 years in sales and business development experience within the Alberta oil and gas industry and founded his own business development firm in 2020. His passion and his specialization is in customer relationship generation and business development. The show is brought to you by Capital Business Development, your business development specialists. For more, we invite you to the website at www.capitalbd.ca. See you next time on the Business Development Podcast.